baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports, live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios. Tonight, we talk a lot about the home teams, the Saints, the Pelicans, Tulane Green Wave, and the LSU Tigers. To break it down for us, two of the best we have in this city, Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3, and my neighbor right down the block from Fox 8, Chris Hagan. From Fox 8 Sports. Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us, and welcome to our new studios.
I love the digs,
yeah, man.
I mean, aside from the fact that Chris can just walk over
Chris
here.
just jogged here on his way.
Probably so.
I'd be sweating a lot more if I did jog here.
Fit that way, but dude, I love it. It's a beautiful view, obviously, seeing out towards that way.
It is.
Metairie in the Carrollton Overpass and in the Dome in the arena. We're just
that's cool, man.
touching before, man. Tomorrow, I can't wait. I cannot believe that I'm pumped up about Pell's preseason.
Well, we'll talk about that because you guys are now the station of the New Orleans Pelicans. And you're going to be out there broadcasting live tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we'll be out there. We're going to do that a lot during the season. For a lot of the select games, we'll be doing live from the concourse 6 to 6:30. And look, I'll be honest with you guys. You know, I'm really good friends with the Graf. Hearing him call these games on Monday and on Wednesday was just incredible to be able to play the highlights and be able to hear it. But he's in heaven, and I'm pumped up. It's nuts. The Saints are doing well. Everyone's doing well, college football-wise. Tulane, the works. But people want to talk basketball in October.
Finally.
It's really nuts. Yeah.
Finally, huh?
I know. It's
Usually
nice.
it's January.
It's nice.
Finally.
There's no you do 2 hours. I do 3. I could do 6 right now. It's incredible.
It really is. Before we go on, still Tulane sideline reporter.
Yep.
Still, and of course, you guys tell the folks when they catch you on the radio.
Yeah, 12 to 3 each and every weekday over on ESPN New Orleans.
Beautiful. Chris, welcome back. You guys are doing a fantastic job over Fox 8. I can keep track of everything on the app. But what I love is every single night, again, I can switch to Fox 8 weekdays, and I'm getting some kind of sports, whether a game or, again, the great programming. Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, Monday nights we've got the Black and Gold Review Show with Deuce McAllister. On Tuesday nights, our Roundtable Overtime Show. We get you ready for the game Wednesday nights with Game Plan. We've got Thursday Night Football. Friday nights, our high school football show, Fox 8 Football Friday. Sunday mornings, the Fox 8 Live Tailgate, now that the Saints are actually playing noon games again.
Right.
And then we wrap it all up on the Final Play. We've also got a podcast, the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast, the Final Play app, but also the Tiger Huddle app is one of my favorite right now. I've got a lot of great content on that. LSU's having a great football season. Obviously, we'll get into basketball, eventually baseball. Go into gymnastics, whatever you want. It's all in the Tiger Huddle app, so that's a big one,
Right,
too.
and don't forget about your blog because folks need help with
That's
fantasy
right.
football.
The Extra Point, the fantasy football blog. I try and get out some good advice. I think I've done pretty well so far.
So far. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm reading, I'm all over
You
it.
could have told me that earlier. I started 0-2 the season.
Well,
But
so did I.
3 straight,
But
baby.
since then, I'm
You can bounce back. You can always bounce back.
No doubt. Guys, let's start with the Saints. Winners over Tampa Bay 31-24. It really wasn't that close. It was garbage time at the end of the game. Let's start with Breeze first. Throwing the football a little bit now. You've seen him now without the brace on. I'm of the opinion, hold this guy out till after the bye week, and then again let him start fresh from there. Where do you guys stand?
Can you imagine that conversation when he walks into the office and goes, "Coach, I'm ready"? And what if it is before that amount? How do you tell a Hall of Fame quarterback, yeah, let's just hold you back and do that? So I think you trust him, but I think also, Chris, and covering Drew as long as you have as well, you're going to trust that he's going to say, let's go, when he knows he's 100% and ready to go. Look, right now, you're ahead of the game, if you ask me, right? Every week, they're progressing as a team. Every week, Teddy Bridgewater and the offense looks like they're getting more and more. This past week in the Dome, I thought Sean Payton absolutely killed it game plan-wise. We have to remember he's learning how Teddy plays and how to make him comfortable. You saw rollout plays. You saw him be able to get rid of the football. Teddy surveying the field, going through progressions. So he's getting more comfortable. You get this win in Jacksonville. To me, Chicago's land gap. If you can get that win, great. I think you're more talented than the Cardinals on the field. I'll see you against Atlanta. Now, I know there is a belief, Chris, hey, maybe to get off some of that rust, play him against the Cards, and then he has that extra week to heal and stuff. But I think you have some good time to decide what to do.
Well, I think it's Drew Brees, so I don't know if there's going to be a ton of rust. I mean, the guy is as good at knowing his body and knowing what he needs to do to be able to give this team 100%. And I think Brees is a guy, and it sounds like he's being smart enough with it where he wouldn't, just to put himself back on the field and back in the spotlight, jeopardize not only his health but just the team's success if he's not able to go 100%. So in that regard, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he could shake off the rust in the first half against Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta's not even that close of a game anymore, the way they're playing. And so I think that Drew will play it safe. And look, it's not one of these situations where it was like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and I'm sure Brett Favre is wary of not letting Aaron Rodgers see the field because then all of a sudden your job is taken. This is still Drew Brees' team. This is still of the expectation of just about everyone, should be everyone, that when Brees is ready to go, Brees is back on the field. I don't think you can deny that. Sure. So there's no harm on any grounds, whether it's Brees worried about his backup being in or the Saints trying to rush Brees back. There shouldn't be any worry about getting him back and risking anything further. He should take his time to when he can really help the team. Yeah,
I would agree. I agree with both you guys. Bridgewater last week, 26 of 34, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, you could say it's his fault, a little bit behind Kamara. I think Kamara should have caught that ball. It is what it is. But to your point that you made, I don't want to call it spoon feeding, but again, slowly allowing him to be able to kind of feel his way through the offense. A little bit each and every week based on what the defense is playing. And again, I think I felt this way. I always felt that, again, what we saw out of Teddy last week was what we were going to see out of Teddy eventually because of what we've seen in the past from Bridgewater. I think people got a little bit spoiled from Drew Brees and the numbers he's put up. But again, you look at the offensive line. If the offensive line would have played better, I think the stats for Bridgewater would have been even better in the first few weeks that he played. I agree, and I think the beauty of it, too, is what helps you as a quarterback? You have Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Yeah. So, I mean, it's great, right? You take a look at what Teddy's been able to do, and I think what Sean Payton makes sense. I mean, Michael Thomas is going to get open, and I think we talked about this a lot. I'm sure you guys did as well individually when they were discussing what type of deal Michael Thomas should and shouldn't have, and if it's worth it post Drew Brees. It's the reason why you want somebody like that, because it is a security blanket. It's a safety blanket in a good way. He's going to get open. His game isn't about just downhill speed that's going to go off if he gets older and stuff. His physical size gets him open, and he knows how to run routes, and if you throw it around him, he doesn't drop the ball. Yes. So that helps bail you out. It also helps bail you out where you can just toss left or right to Kamara, hand it off to him, throw it to him out of the backfield, do all these different things that get him moving. And now you're starting to see the implementation of a Jared Cook. You're starting to see some of the other things come out. So, and again, to your point, it wouldn't be spoon feeding, like that's how you kind of looked at it. I think it's what made him more comfortable to do so. But I think it's good to see some of the progressions that you've seen from one week to another to another. It doesn't look like he's regressing or it's going back. He seems more comfortable. And Chris, when you hear the Dome start chanting Teddy, I don't think it's just me that feels it was good.
Well, look, I think the Bucs matchup came at the perfect time for Teddy to start to push the ball down the field more, start to get more comfortable. If I'm Tampa Bay, I'm kind of reevaluating what I want to do defensively, not just in that game, but going forward. They played a lot of man defense. That's not a team with the corners and the talent to play man, especially once Carlton Davis goes out and you've got Vernon Hargreaves against Michael Thomas outside. Hargreaves is a slot corner, and he had no business out there. And of course, the Saints were going to take advantage of that. And I think that's where Teddy was able to take advantage. And, he talked about it after the game. The plan, as soon as you start putting in that week's game plan, was to be aggressive. They knew the looks they were going to get from the Bucs. Taysom Hill said it after the game. It was one of those games where everything you called and every defense they threw at you, and when you called that play, it was exactly how you practiced it. So It was a great game plan, and I think it was good for Teddy to be able to get the ball down the field a little bit more because it was a secondary that you could do so against. Now, the hope is that you get a blend of that, the aggressiveness that Teddy has now felt that, yeah, I can take some shots behind the first level of the defense. I can put it in front of a safety and know that Thomas is going to go get it. And blend that with the Teddy we saw when he needed to be safe against Dallas in a close game and against Seattle in wet weather on the road. You blend those together, you have a quarterback that's got better feel and that's more comfortable, and I think that's plenty good enough to get you through Jacksonville, maybe through Chicago, and certainly through Arizona.
And to the point of Kamara has not maybe had the exploding numbers, but I give him a lot of credit because of the physical running that he's had to do in between the tackles, something we saw Ingram do a lot in his time here in New Orleans. Kamara, again, they're utilizing him in a lot of different ways, but he's showing, again, that he's more than just a guy that again, can make yards outside.
I think the number one thing with Kamara is he's just effective. I mean, when I refer to fantasy football real quick, he breaks all the numbers because fantasy football is about volume. It's why Christian McCaffrey's so good. It's why Todd Gurley was so good a couple years ago because they touch the ball so much. Kamara touches the ball maybe 20 times a game, 25 on a high day, 30 if it's a close game and you really have to use him. But he's not touching the ball a lot, but he's effective with his touches. He's picking up 4 or 5, 6 yards per carry. He's doing the most with little flat routes and taking them for extra yards. That's why he's so valuable. It's not about the numbers, but if it's 3rd and 3, I know I can get the ball to Kamara around the line of scrimmage, and he's going to get those yards.
Your thoughts on how they're utilizing Kamara now?
Yeah, exactly to his point where, you might see small numbers, but they're first downs.
Yeah,
a lot of times when he touches it, it's a first down or it's a momentum, sort of play. Or even when you go back a couple weeks ago, that 10 little yard run, but it's so shifty, it gets the crowd going. It's just one of those spectacular moves. And then when they play it in slow-mo, you just gasp, And what was it, a 10, 11-yard run that he had a couple weeks ago that did that? So it's just, I just think people are stepping up around him too as well. And I think that's the most remarkable thing about it. But we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, since OTAs, forget that, free agency. Sean Payton liked Teddy Bridgewater. He liked what this offense did. The locker room, like Michael Thomas is tweeting, we love him. He's the guy that we need. So I think it's maybe almost been a benefit to have this because it's probably made some other guys kind of step up and grow on the defensive side, offensive side as well. And I think they want to do that. But you kind of got a hint of that, guys, a couple years ago, 2 years ago when you had a bunch of Saints players in the Pro Bowl. And remember Mark Ingram had a takeover day on his social media account for the Saints. And it wasn't just Drew. It was Lattimore, and it was Thomas and Kamara and everyone else. And it hits you. It's not like when you're doing promos, right? You're cutting Sunday, Saints take on. It was Breeze and like 6 highlights of Breeze. Now it's not. I mean, you have a foundation of a handful of players with Cam Jordan, with other members on it. Like Davenport will be in those promos soon. So it's been interesting to see. But Kamara is, to me, name me a better running back in the NFL. They can do more. I can't find one.
Thankfully, the offensive line kind of got it together. Again, that was an emphasis this week. Not a lot of penalties. Blocked very, very well for Bridgewater, gave him time. But I'd like to shift to the defensive side of the ball. And I got to tell you right now, I've seen the Saints football since the inception in '67, and been trying to think about this. Where you rank this defensive line in all-time Saints defensive lines. Now, it's early. But the depth, the youth, there's only 2 players on their second contract. That's Brown and Jordan. Everybody else still on their first deal, their rookie deals. It's been amazing transformation, and part of that, obviously, is what they're getting out of the interior. And once Onyemata came back, now Rankins, Brown. But what you're getting out of Davenport now and giving you another pass rusher opposite Cam Jordan. We saw a little bit of a maturation process growth out of Trey Hendrickson. But now, again, you're seeing this out of Davenport. Heck, Granderson got in the game last week and got a sack. This is as formal a defensive line as the Saints have ever had.
Yeah.
I can't think of one. Are you?
No. I mean, especially in terms of depth.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Exactly.
And every guy's coming in fresh, and they've all been able to get after the passer. They're healthy. And you nailed it with Davenport. I mean, his development is like icing on the cake. You weren't sure if it was going to come, and it looked like Trey Hendrickson might steal a couple reps because of what he was able to do in the preseason. But Davenport's been excellent, man. And just outside of the sacks, the 2 sacks he had, just the pressures and the hits that he's had the week before, it's been marvelous.
And also 31 straight games without a 100-yard rusher.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think of the different backs that they've had here. And look, I get this week going into Jacksonville, Fournette starting to pick up. It looked sort of like the back that they've kind of won and everything. That's helped Gardner Minshew and everything. But look, Rankins, getting him back sooner. I mean, I thought December. Maybe I was totally off on that.
I mean,
so
did I. Achilles injury, that's what you would expect.
Absolutely.
He's playing. He got a sack.
Freakish,
I mean, it's incredible. Look, and Onyemata and all those guys. And, we have Marlon Favorite on a ton. And, being a D tackle is like, look, we don't mind having two deep. You want to get those fresh legs because, Chris, as we've seen, a lot of these games sometimes come down to the fourth, come down to big third down. If you're fresh and you can get that one sack or that one pressure to make Dak throw it sooner, Jameis with some pressure, turn it to an interception to Marcus Williams. It wasn't a sack, it was pressures. And Sean Payton on Wednesday in his conference call specifically said he's happy with the pressures they're getting. Not specifically sacks, but the pressures.
You've eliminated the double teams. Who do you double team now? I mean, again, at one point it was always double teaming Jordan. Well, now you've got pass rushers on the opposite side. What do you do on the interior when you've got either Onyemata, Brown, or Rankins in there? I mean, you got to play them straight up unless you're going to be able to keep a tight end or a back in, and then you're hurting yourself in terms of the number of pass catchers.
Yeah, it's something that pays dividends not only with your front, but with the secondary as well. When you're able to get pressure with a four-man rush and drop 7, or at times they've been dropping 8 in the coverage and still been able to at least push the pocket a little bit. And that's what's been a big part of keeping guys like Jameis in check, keeping Dak Prescott and the Cowboys from having too many big plays. And look, those explosive plays were really what hurt the Saints most in the first couple of games, obviously what the Texans did with the 2-play drive. The Rams didn't have a ton, but they just happened at the wrong moments in the second half, and then Russell Wilson's going to be Russell Wilson. But the last 2 weeks, they've eliminated those explosive plays, and that's been huge.
And I think it goes hand in hand with the pass rush. I mean, if the quarterback doesn't have a lot of time to throw the ball, and look, I think that when you look at Seattle and Wilson, kind of anomaly because, again, the way he runs around. And look, there were a lot of garbage yards in that Seattle game at the end as well. But, again, the ability to put pressure on the passer, as you mentioned, second and third levels are they're better. Then you got Lattimore shutting down one side of the field. If you want to shade Williams to Apple, you could do that. But, again, quarterbacks are having to get the ball out much quicker. Yeah, no doubt. And I think it all goes hand in hand as you're talking about, too. And it also, I think you're seeing good plays in all different phases in different plays in terms by different players, linebackers, corners, safeties, and it just kind of goes to depth. But isn't this what we kind of seen the last several years of the Saints defense? First 2 games, like, oh my goodness, they can't stop anybody. And then for some reason, Dennis Allen figures it out somehow, some way, and by week 3, 4, 5, and you start to see it progress. So, look, they'll be tested over the next couple weeks in some different areas and different styles of play. But I'm just looking up and down the schedule. You face some pretty good offenses and backs and quarterbacks and such already. So if they can just maintain, it should be good. Guys, talk about the coaching job that Peyton has done and also Dennis Allen's done. You kind of touched on Dennis Allen. You lose the best player in franchise history, your leader, your quarterback, the guy that, again, leads this team, what he does on the field in terms of, again, the offense was built around him. And it's almost like, again, it rejuvenated the juices of Sean Payton. Yeah, it's fun. I would imagine as a coach it's really fun to get creative like that and, game plan for a different guy. I think there are some weeks where obviously the weather, like Seattle, or the opponent, like Dallas, and playing a lot of deep zone, it dictates what you're going to be able to do. But then when you do get the matchups like Tampa Bay, you're licking your chops and you're knowing, look, if we have a quarterback we're confident in under center, we're going to be able to take those shots down the field. But everything from dialing the right guy's number, having creative protections to give Teddy a little more time to feel comfortable. They've done a marvelous job, and it'll be interesting to see what they do against a Jacksonville team that I think there's more in that defense. They haven't had great games this year. No. Obviously, if Jalen Ramsey is able to play, that changes things a little bit. Right. I still like the matchup. I like Michael Thomas against anything but a double team, really. And so we'll see how it goes. But, look, I think Peyton has obviously thrown himself in there for Coach of the Year running because
of the job he's done without the guy that he is that he's built this offense with.
Yeah. What can you add?
I think it started before Drew Brees obviously got injured, and the coaching job starts going. And we're sort of seeing that, with the building just to the right of the dome in the arena. It's building the culture. It's building the locker room, bringing in the right guys that can handle a situation like that. I don't know, Chris, if a couple of years ago this team reacts a certain way, but you have way more leaders in that locker room. Even the guys that aren't quote-unquote leaders or captains, they're mature players. I mean, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, mature players go about their business and understand it. Even on the defensive side here as well. You don't really have anybody that is out there divaing it up and things of that nature. So I think it's easier to absorb a hit like that. Demario Davis, my goodness, have we seen?
He's amazing.
So when you look at that locker room, it absorbs a hit like that probably a little bit easier than other locker rooms. To the point that literally the guy that replaces him in the first week, just don't lose it for us. And in week 2, look, we're in a battle. Let the other areas of the team win. Just get us that field goal is just as important. And then you're starting to see it open more. So I'm with you. I'm interested because what we haven't seen, while we've seen the progression, as I mentioned earlier, Latavius Murray 2 weeks ago, we're starting to see more, right? A little more Jared Cook. Last week, a lot more Jared Cook. Name me the next receiver that has 10 catches. We still haven't seen that. Right. And that's an element of this offense that's been a staple under Drew Brees and Sean Payton, where it's 4 or 5 receivers that get it. So we've yet to see that. If they can start incorporating 1 to 2 receivers with 3 or 4 catches, now we're talking a little bit different.
Yeah. And I would add this about the coaching job. I mean, I don't know if it's just, like Gus mentioned, just because of the Brees injury, but look at the opponent and look at the situation. A wet Seattle, and then Dallas, who held the Saints in check last year as well. I'm not 100% sure that even with Drew Brees, you're going out there and lighting it up, and that it's that much different of a game plan. Because in Seattle, you want to play it safe. You want to play and have an Alvin Kamara heavy game. In Dallas, again, I don't know if Brees is going to be forcing the ball downfield if they're playing some deep zone coverages. So I think it's a good job of a self-study with the Saints and Peyton getting the question all offseason. Just what happened last year after that Eagles game when the offense just fell off a cliff and really never looked themselves after that. You look at that, and then you bring that into this year as well and apply it to whoever's at quarterback. You apply it to the entire offense. We need to find a way to get out of this mold that worked for the first 10 or so weeks last year and all of a sudden make it work for the entire offense this year.
Guys, let's talk a little bit about Jacksonville. You guys mentioned it. Fournette is really the bell cow there, catching the ball in the backfield, running the football. DJ Chark has emerged now as the #1 receiver for Minshew, who's played very, very well as a backup, coming in and having the chance to be able to start. He's a guy that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He seems to be very, very poised in the pocket, but he's going to get a heavy dose of the Saints' defense. The one thing the Saints' defense has been able to hang their hat on, stopping the run, and then again going after the passer. This will be an interesting matchup because if you stop Fournette, you pretty much stop the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're a great story, obviously, with what they've been able to do. And, a couple years ago, not even, 2 seasons ago, I mean, they were in the AFC Championship.
Yes, so with a very good defense.
They got talent. Now, some of those players aren't there anymore.
True.
I think that locker room's still trying to come together. I just think it goes back to this. I mean, we had on our show this week, prognosticators, what have you. Chris, they're telling me, the reason Jacksonville's favors the Saints are on grass. They got done playing some tough teams. I'm like, when you're telling me that, then I know the Saints are a good football team. You're not giving me matchups. You're not telling me Minshew versus the Saints secondary. I'm happy for Chark, but you're not telling me Chark is going to get open, and you're not telling me Fournette's going to run wild. Is he better than Ezekiel Elliott in that offensive line? I don't. So when you're telling me, it's on grass and it's a noon kickoff, which boggles my mind because most Saints home games, last I checked, are at noon. So I don't know. I mean, now you're telling me they're playing in the daytime. So, look, I get it. It's a nice story, but off the bus on the field, you want to talk matchups. Where do they favor? Where are special teams the Saints have? So I'm with you, but it's going to be interesting to sort of see how they handle that because, to your point, I was thinking, well, what if there's a game where it's low scoring? I'm sorry, they just did that. Well, what if it's a game where Teddy really can't get the offense? Well, we just saw that. Well, what if it's they've kind of done that just the last 3 weeks. So I'm interested to see where is that next challenge? Because, man, the last 3 weeks have been challenging.
Yeah, and the common denominator in those has been the defense has played well. I'd be interested to see. I think the best way this game could play out for the Saints would be get an early lead. Jacksonville is most comfortable when they're playing in a close game and they can still afford to run Fournette 22, 23, 24, 25 times. Fournette might be a guy who gets 1 yard, 3 yards, 4 yards, bang, 60 yards, right? And then all of a sudden Jacksonville's got something going. If it's a close game, they can either take the lead, tied up, whatever. We kind of saw that against the Broncos a couple weeks ago in that game Minshew won, and that was a big one for them. But I don't know if they've faced a run defense like the Saints. I mean, you're hard-pressed to run on that front, and Demario Davis and A.J. Klein, they've been excellent against the run.
Yes.
You mentioned the stat, 31 games without a 100-yard rusher, and they've done it against Gurley. They've done it against Elliott. They've done it against, was it Barkley last year? They've done it against a lot of different teams.
Well, the best in the NFL is where they've done it.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, and so, look, it's going to be an interesting matchup, certainly, but if the Saints are fortunate enough to get out to a lead, it certainly favors them. Even if they're not, like Gus said, I think we've seen enough from Teddy to know that he is at least capable of leading this team down the field, through the air, completing 6, 7 straight passes and getting the ball into the end zone should that be necessary too.
And that offensive line has given up 12 sacks in 5 games. Minshew has been under constant pressure when he drops back to pass. And based on what the Saints have done with their defensive line thus far, it's going to be a huge challenge for them to be able to match up the Saints defense. And I think that's one, as to your point, I don't see a matchup where you say, okay, the Jacksonville Jaguars win this matchup. I just don't see it going across the board. Defensively, as you mentioned, they're not the same team. Right. Okay, and who knows how Ramsey's going to play if he gets out of the field anyway. Maybe his pride takes over and he's going against a Michael Thomas and he comes in and plays. But again, this has been a distraction for that whole franchise going forward. When you got to get the owner to go in and beg the best cornerback on your team to be able to come out and play again for you.
Yeah, and look, it's been with a back injury. So,
yeah.
I mean, if anybody's ever had back soreness, it's how that feels that day and after contact.
Or it could be a faux back injury, too, where you just, I don't want to play until I get traded.
Right. No, I hear you. But remember, they're playing on grass and it's at noon.
There you go. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Michael Thomas is a physical matchup to come back against. That's tough. I mean,
Chris, it's on grass.
Oh, yeah, it is on grass. Yeah, that's tough.
Can he get open on grass?
I mean I actually watched earlier.
Kamara's going to be even better on grass.
Just thinking about Jalen Ramsey, I was watching Michael Thomas against Xavier Rhodes in that playoff game a couple years ago against the Vikings. He worked Rhodes over,
Ate
man.
him alive.
I like the matchup. And unless you're, like I said, unless you're double teaming Michael Thomas, basically giving him the Rams treatment where they just throw so many guys at him, they force the Saints to go elsewhere. I like Michael Thomas one-on-one with anyone in the league.
The only matchup I could see where it's even is the punter Cook and the kicker Lambo. Lambo hasn't missed a kick this year. Cook is one of the best punters in the NFL. Other than that, I mean, again, I call that that's a draw.
That's a wash, man.
Right, Yeah. So, I mean, I don't see I know they're going into Jacksonville. I think the Saints are the superior team.
I'll say this, though. The NFL has had some screwy games.
Sure.
I mean, this year it's been
every week.
Yeah, Kansas City. You wouldn't have thought that they would have struggled against, some of the teams that they have here as well. You've seen some upsets. I mean, who had Tampa putting 50 on the Rams? Right. So, look, at the end of the day, you do have to go play your game.
Absolutely.
Take care of your business.
Can't turn the ball over.
I was going to say,
feed on that.
Penalties, turnovers, that makes Jacksonville all of a sudden Dallas and Seattle and turns, did they take the tarp off in the pool area? I mean, are they seating everybody there in Jacksonville? Is it 30,000? I mean, look, but all of that adds to it. So if you don't go out there and you have a bad game, I just think the Saints do have enough players that, an awful lot of players that have to have bad games. Right.
You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports, Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 FM. I'm Eric Asher. I'm your host. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk LSU, Tulane, and Pelicans. Stick around.
Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 and Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports. Guys, let's turn to LSU, fifth in both polls, 42-6 winner over Utah State. Burrow's been absolutely incredible. The offense has been prolific. Finally, we saw the defense tackle well last week. And as you look forward to this next week against, 7th-ranked Florida, you're finally going to start to get a little bit healthy here on the defense.
I think health, right, Chris, is the number one thing.
Yep.
And also
Especially
going into that game, it was, 126 tackle reps that Coach Joe said, because he kept harping over and over, 18 missed tackles against Vandy. So, again, there's just so much talent on that defense. At some point, it's going to get there, and you're happy that those deficiencies happen early and that it's not Florida State and Auburn going into Bama and things of that nature, because you start missing tackles in those games, it's probably going to hurt you a little bit more than Vandy, and it did at Vanderbilt.
Right.
I mean, it
Vaughn,
made that game
hurt you with Vaughn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree. I think LSU has certainly gotten their confidence back in the right spot going into this game. And look, as far as the defense goes, like you said, there's so much talent there that eventually not only are they going to get better, but they're going to get more confident. They're going to get more comfortable. And with them, I think it's just about not giving up the big play. Yes. Texas had a couple of them. Vandy broke a couple of runs, had a couple of big plays. Against Florida, we've seen it come in years past with some tricky things that Mullins worked in with some option runs and some different fakes and different looks. That's what I'd be more on the lookout for there. But I think as far as the basics, the things that they were doing wrong the first couple of weeks, I think they're a little bit better. Yeah,
guys, I think both teams have tremendous amount of speed. We know that from again, this Florida team. I'll be interested to see, again, over the next few weeks to get an SEC play, and this is really the beginning of it, how the offensive line performs. How does Burrow go through his progressions, his ability to be able to, again, get out of the pocket and run. And then, of course, the windows get a little bit tighter when you get into SEC play, the adjustment there for the receivers and also the quarterback.
You bring up a good, interesting point, too. Look, in Vandy, it was phenomenal statistically and all that. They suffered some injuries at receiver. Now, I've heard we're going to start getting them back here soon. One in particular you might see against Alabama, but that's 3 games against some better defense.
Yeah, that Marshall won't be there.
Right, exactly. If you want to take State out, they're struggling this year. But Florida's a good defense, and again, not having all that complement in there. But I think the one thing that has helped is that you're starting to see a little more production out of the backfield, right, Chris? So you're seeing them run the football a little bit more and help that
with the
out
younger
as well.
backs, Emory and Davis Price, which is what they needed because they're more dynamic runners than Fournette, who just left the building. But also, again, with all respect to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he doesn't have the natural ability that both those two guys have.
Well, you look at Joe Burrow from right now versus a year ago. Now, obviously, it's a different offense and different scheme, and more playmakers stepping up. So you got to tip your hat to the receivers and the job that Joe Brady's done as well. But Burrow himself looks a lot more confident, and his decision making. I don't know if we've talked about that enough. We talk about, I guess, the throws he's been able to make and his accuracy and his ability to run, but just the decision making of knowing the right time to run, recognizing man right away, knowing that, okay, if my guy's not there, I can run. Being able to take the right throw, take the safe throw at times, make the risky throw at times, and trust his receivers. Just the decision making's been a lot better. And look, you look at not only this Florida game last year, but the one that they just played against Auburn, it's when quarterbacks didn't make great decisions, the Bo Nix interceptions, whenever they did have a chance to strike against Florida. And then last year, LSU was driving in Florida territory looking to extend their lead, and Joe Burrow fumbles, and it kind of changed the game from there. Right. Those are things that if LSU avoids, they avoid turning the ball over. Call me crazy, not overly worried.
Right.
LSU scores 54 points a game. What's a step back? 35? Right. Is Florida putting up 35 points?
Yeah.
On a good day?
No. Yeah. Not with Trask at quarterback for sure. Right. Not what they have.
Yeah, well, look at Vegas. They have it at 13 and a half, so they're believing in Burrow in that offense.
Right. But, again, it gets a little bit tougher. Florida, as you mentioned, Mississippi State, Auburn, and at Mississippi State, Auburn, and then at Alabama. This is a gauntlet for them in terms of, again, stepping up in class week to week, physical play of the SEC, physical play along the lines. We'll find out a lot about this defensive line this week, find out a lot about this offensive line this week. Be interested to see, again, almost how much Ed Ingram plays as well.
One of the other things, too, when you look at the stretch, you talked about confidence. When you look at LSU play, aren't you seeing just physically superior football team to a lot of the players that are playing? I mean, just talent kind of oozing everywhere, and you're seeing that.
But based on the opponent,
right?
You were going to see that anyway.
Right, but that's the thing. What I mean by that is when you don't have that or you have good athletes, those games are maybe 34, 29 points. Right. He's talking about 50. When you're averaging 50 points, your athletes, it's Ohio State and Oklahoma and stuff, right? I mean, look, those games are tighter when they play a little bit better competition in the playoffs. But during the season, they're smoking their conference teams because they're just that far superior. So when I look at the teams going up until Bama, I think LSU is more superior when it comes to athleticism. Right. The one thing that brings everybody down to an even playing field is injuries. When you play those three teams you're talking about, yes, State doesn't have the talent that LSU has right now, and I don't think Auburn's offense with Nix does either, but you're playing SEC teams with some big guys, and you can get injured that way. So if LSU can get relatively healthy leading into Bama while playing those three teams, that game becomes even more interesting. It's how healthy can they be? I think they can win those three. How healthy can they stay, though, leading the Bama, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to sound overconfident, but I do believe it comes down to the execution, and because you're the more elite athletes, if you do that, you should have a lot of success. And I think that's what's going to be key for LSU going forward, even when you get into this gauntlet, because I feel like they really are the better team. We're still conditioning ourselves to seeing LSU, right? Like you've seen LSU, make a mess of things against Florida teams they should beat in the past, against Auburn teams they should beat in the past, against Mississippi State. But we're still trying to adjust to seeing out, is it real, right? They've only played probably one real opponent in these first couple games. And so that does remain an unknown. I think, and I don't want to be overconfident, like I said, but I just think going forward we'll see that this is real. And it's possible for it to just click because the elite athletes have been there for the last 5 years. They've always recruited well at wide receiver. They've recruited well in the state, but you finally had the right quarterback in Burrow, coordinator in Insminger, passing game coordinator in Brady. You had the right people to make it click, and that's what we're seeing.
That Florida defense giving about 9 points a game. Obviously, that changes this week. How much does it change?
I think it changes a good bit. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU puts up at least 24. I would expect it to be north of 30, to be honest.
Okay.
I think LSU can do that. Now, it depends on the game flow. It depends on the pace. I think if you're Florida, I'm trying to limit possessions. I'm trying to have success running the ball, taking possessions away from LSU because they can put points on the board in bunches, and that's how they've been able to build some of those leads. But you look at the teams Florida's played in Tennessee and Kentucky, a freshman quarterback in Auburn, Towson.
Their schedule's equal to LSU's, really, for the most part.
Burrow's had experience playing them last year. I know it's different teams, different seasons, but you kind of have an idea what's coming. Again, those injuries will be interesting. Can those guys get as open as they can everywhere else? But I just think, again, there's a reason Vegas feels that way. I think they trust, Burrow, and he's a guy that is a Heisman candidate for a reason, Eric. And I think at the end of the day, let's not forget he's basically playing football at LSU, right? So he has time and has had time to study and look at this defense. And we've seen this guy from day one against Miami be able to make audibles and changes at the line. That was last year. I think he'll be ready this year.
I think the injuries on defense help them in the long run because I think you have to go too deep when you're scoring as quickly as this team is. Right. Now you've had guys that have gotten legitimate playing time, Neil Farrell, some of the other guys along the defensive line. Patrick Queen came in last week, played really well at the linebacker position. You're seeing a very, very young secondary, but these guys, again, came in. Remember, there's a reason why, again, the upperclassmen moved on, okay? They left. So it'll be interesting to see, again, what happens against Florida, because, again, they can match the athleticism. But I'm with you guys. I think they win against Florida in Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, I do too.
I would agree. I mean, even from a young secondary type of standpoint, I mean, Derek Stingley, you'd have a hard time distinguishing a freshman from a senior there. That guy looks – it's not just the physical ability, because a lot of freshmen come in with physical ability, but it's the technique. He can lock down one side of the field. He can move Christian Fulton around now because it sounds like Cordell Flott is going to be a little bit more available. So I think we see, at least given the guys available, one of the better efforts from LSU's defense. So I like their chances, especially in Tiger Stadium.
It's funny you talked about Stingley, because I said this week he's as close to an NFL corner that you'll see in major college football.
Especially this young.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally, he could play like next year in the pros if he was draftable.
Yeah, he's got 2 more years.
Yeah, thank God.
Think about that. That much better.
All right. Gus, I really need your take on this. Tulane, fantastic season so far, 4-1, 42-33 winners over Army. They had 16 days to prepare for that triple option. I had Gary Smith on the show from the Advocate this week and the Wave Report, and I came out and I said, look. I love the win. It's a tough place to win, obviously. 15 straight games?
Yeah.
They had won before Tulane went in there and won. You look at what they've done against Michigan, other big-time teams, even with this season. I thought that they won because they were the more athletic team, but I thought they got out-hustled at times. I thought they got out-physical at times. You were on the sidelines. What did you see?
Well, I think one of the things that you see, and it was one of those rare games where, it was kind of evenly matched on the physicality aspect. I think that's been remarkable for me to see. It's my 11th season. Very rarely, Chris, can I sit there and be like, Tulane's athletes are faster, stronger, bigger. And look, 500-plus yards of offense is 500-plus yards of offense. They had 5 running backs score a touchdown. They literally have – forget double barrel. You have Gatling gun of backs there. Freshmen, juniors, seniors, sophomores, you name it. But that line's finally protecting. And you haven't had to – that's right, you did have to ask Justin McMillan to win it. He's progressed as a quarterback. So I think that's what's remarkable to me is that if the game gets tight, if they get down, or if it becomes a battle, they're not panicking. They've won games literally on the last play or in the last second and made plays defensively to keep themselves in the game like they did against Houston. But at times you looked at that game against Army and go, okay, they were 3-1 for a reason. They could have and should have beaten Michigan.
Right.
So that was a good football team, and I think it was what this team needed because there's a lot of back padding right now going on, and Felix is great. And look, you haven't had success, right? So when you're literally, looking to be 5-1 for the second time since 1980,
right?
There's a lot of people that are like, this is great, we're doing fine. But they want to win the conference. Still to come, let's not keep this in mind. Memphis is ranked.
Yes.
Okay, that's 2 weeks from now, which is nuts that on
and
October
Memphis,
19th,
right?
It's at Memphis, which is a house of horrors. But on October 19th, Chris, if I'd have told you that Tulane could be bowl eligible with the win there,
boom,
right? That's huge. But look at the end of that schedule right now.
Right.
Ranked is SMU. So Memphis, SMU, UCF was ranked. You still have to play them. That's your final home game. So you're facing 3 ranked or have been ranked opponents or could be ranked opponents still to come in the final 7 after you take care of business on Saturday.
At Memphis, at Navy. Tulsa comes here into Yeoman for a homecoming. At Temple, UCF, as you mentioned, and then what is it, at SMU, right?
Yeah.
Right? Is
yeah,
that what it is?
Yeah, it's at SMU,
Right.
and they're ranked right now.
Yeah.
So it's, you look at it, because there was a lot of people saying, in Uptown, hey, why isn't Tulane ranked? They will be.
No, this is their gauntlet right here.
Yeah, they will be when they get that done. They
Right.
played a lot of home games early. Now you got to go out there and prove it, and you do it on the road. And look, sometimes it's by 1, sometimes by 10. You can go out there and do it. But there's a lot of confidence in the locker room right now.
What are your thoughts first on the game against Army, and then we'll kind of get into the program as a whole?
Well, what impressed me about Army was not just the amount of running backs and the things that the line did, was just the fact that they were resilient and, after going down 7-0 early, and then bouncing back and scoring 21 straight. And then Army responds and ties the game up with their first drive of the third quarter. That Tulane said, you know what, we're going to come back and we're going to take your soul from you. And they not only scored 21 straight to make it 42-21, but on that first drive, 10 plays, 8 out of those 10 plays were runs. It was Bradwell, it was Amari Jones, it was Dauphine. They are just loading up and just pounding you with the football down the field. And it's been remarkable. But even outside of just the run game, talking to Coach Fritz at his presser on Tuesday, I asked, does Amari Jones have a usage a little bit like Alvin Kamara? I mean, he had 6 receptions for 100 yards. He took a screen for about 50 yards at one point in that game. He's a guy that they've gotten the football in a number of different ways. Dauphine is a guy who can get the football in a number of different ways. If it's end arounds, if it's a sweep, if it's Mooney down the field, if it's McCleskey, I think their offensive coordinator, Will Hall, has done an excellent job at utilizing the personnel and the skill positions and getting everyone the ball in a number of ways. And then on top of that, you make the defense account for Justin McMillan as well because he is a runner. So I think this team has been very complete on the offensive side of the ball, and we haven't even given the offensive line enough credit.
Yeah, and look, that was the biggest question mark coming into the season, right? It wasn't a play of the defensive line. Everybody thought defensive line was going to be really good.
And they are.
And they really are. But it was the play of the offensive line. Nobody really knew how good this offensive line could be. We knew there was a stable of backs. You knew McMillan was going to take the next step. You knew with McCleskey coming in that was going to add something to the wide receiving core. But that was the big question mark.
It was an issue.
Line.
I'll be honest with you. It was terrible.
No doubt.
McMillan would snap the ball and he was getting hit. So I think that's definitely something that has led to their success.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, 500 yards is 500 yards, but that does not happen unless you're giving those guys holes.
And this week, again, you don't want to overlook a team, and in Tulane's position, you never want to. But this is a very winnable game versus UConn.
I was saying earlier in the week, Chris, it's about steps to becoming a winning program. Winning programs take care of business when they need to, and in those take care of business games, they leave no doubt, and you get ready for that next opponent. You like to go play some other guys in that second half. Go take care of your business and go do it. It goes back to what we were talking about. They're just physically superior. You look at UConn up and down the board. Statistically, they're either last or second to last in pretty much everything. Take care of your business, get out of there healthy, and go see if you can take care of Memphis.
Yeah, UConn, they're 30-plus point dogs against Tulane.
When's the last time you could say that?
Yeah, and I think they gave up 300 yards of rushing. It's more than 500 yards rushing against in their last 2 games against Central Florida and South Florida. So, yeah, I would say Tulane and their ability to run the ball are going to run all over UConn.
Yeah, but again, then comes the gauntlet, right?
Yeah.
Then comes, this is the prove it to me time. How good are you as a program?
I think Willie Fritz, though, he's the perfect guy to take the back padding on Saturday, maybe Sunday, and then by Monday it's, all right, we got to be 1-0. We got to do it again.
There you go.
It doesn't mean anything to be 4-1.
I would agree. Set to the phone lines. Greg is up first. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I'm just going to make a statement here and let me hear your thoughts on it. I'm kind of glad that Drew Brees got hurt later in his career than he did early in his career, only because I think Sean Payton is – now I'm not worried about having someone back up Drew Brees or going to trade or find someone in the draft, because now I feel more confident that Sean Payton can go ahead and, make another quarterback just as successful. Now hang up and listen.
Right. It's been a knock on Sean Payton, developing quarterbacks. Now, Chase Daniel's not a bad quarterback, right? And he's come in and mop-up duty for the Saints and mop-up duty for Chicago, Kansas City, and he's played pretty well. But I've even questioned it at times. Okay, who has he developed? Teddy Bridgewater really didn't need to be developed. He was really a good quarterback when he got here. But the next one he may have to develop. That's why all this talk about Joe Burrow's out there right now.
Yeah.
What you're going to – and as I mentioned before, Gus, on the radio show, we've never seen this before. We've never seen a college team run the Saints offense so that you can look at that quarterback and say, okay, that guy's got a little feel for our offense now. This is how he fits. They've had to project that guy, have a vision for that guy. Yeah. And unfortunately, through the draft, they really haven't really hit on that guy that maybe could be the heir apparent for Drew Brees, much like they've done in New England, where they've had a pretty much good success in maybe finding the guy that might be able to be Brady's heir apparent, but Brady's gone on forever like Brees.
I think the most interesting aspect of all of this is John Gruden said it last year. when and how do you develop a quarterback? There just isn't any time in an NFL calendar when you look at it. You're limited in practice. You're limited in reps. Chris, you're out there. We're all out there for training camp and OTAs. Your second string gets, Breeze will get 4 or 5 snaps in the team period. Then the second string gets 4, maybe 3. And then it progressively gets to the point where, you had poor J.T. Barrett have 1 snap and it's a handoff. How did J.T. Barrett – he can't develop. So I don't know how you do it. I don't know if there's another league you can form to do. But if you're not looked at as a starter or a backup, I don't know how you develop a quarterback now. So it is interesting to see that. But, Chris, Sean's told us repeatedly, he wants that challenge of a new quarterback and develop a new offense.
Well, what Peyton's also developed is a team. I mean, there was no other quarterback, not even Breeze, that had this kind of team around him in terms of special teams, defense, a tremendous offensive line that is really having a great year despite some penalties. It's kind of masked how good they've really been. And so that's what I think gives you the confidence that whatever happens past Breeze, past this year, past his moving on or retiring or whatever it may be, gives you faith in the Saints because they've built this team. Not to mention, at some point, the Saints had to look themselves in the mirror and realize Breeze can't carry this team forever. He's not going to be here forever. And by the way, we have been one of the most fortunate teams in NFL history because you can look back and see Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Aaron Rodgers, and Brett Favre. All these guys have suffered injuries at some point. All these guys have had to miss time at some point. The Saints have not had to do that until this year. And even this year, by those comparisons, it's minor. You're not missing a year. You're missing 6 to 8 weeks. And so they built the team that can weather that. That's why Peyton's confident.
And look, it started with building a defense.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's been the missing link. Look, I've said it before. Everybody wants to talk about all the rings that Tom Brady has. The Saints have left some Super Bowls on the table here. If the Saints would have built a defense like the defense they have now throughout the Breeze era, you'd be seeing this team with more Super Bowl championships. Okay, the one time they had a really formal defense is the year that they went to the Super Bowl in 2009. Okay, where they could run the ball, they could play defense, and Breeze obviously could do what he did.
Sean Payton went to defensive coordinators like kickers.
Right. There you go. Yeah. There you go. To Colby in Gretna. Colby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Colby.
Hey, Eric. How you doing? How would you rate Marcus Williams' play the last 2 games? And I'll hang up. Thank you.
I think he's played much better than he's played all season, in the last couple seasons, the last few games. A lot of that, again, when you're getting a pass rush, then you have the opportunity to really help that third level out.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, Chris, it comes down to this. It's simple. He's just making the plays now that they're there. You're not dropping it. And you mentioned it earlier in the show. You're not seeing those big over-the-top plays. That's what he was so good at 2 years ago as a rookie. You didn't see the big over-the-top plays. So a lot of times it isn't an interception in the PBU. It's the lack of big plays the other team gets.
Right, but the reason why, right, Chris? If you're getting a pass rush and you're limiting the ability of the quarterback to go through his progressions, or even look, those plays take a long time to develop. Okay, and if you're getting to the quarterback, you're not going to have those explosive plays.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, he's simply doing his job. He's making the interceptions that come to him. He's always been a really good run support safety, and then they're not giving up those big plays, and I think that's been big. I mean, safety, corner, they're very exposed positions. If you're calling their names too much, it's probably not good. So the fact that we haven't been calling Marcus Williams' name, that's a good sign.
Ernie is in Slidell. Ernie, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Ernie.
You doing, Eric?
Doing fine.
I got a question that you probably won't believe, and you'll love to hear your answer. What odds you think Las Vegas will give on LSU winning the national championship and the Saints winning the Super Bowl?
Okay.
I'll listen.
Thanks, Ernie. I'm not an odds guy. I know you look at the line a lot. What do you think?
I think the Saints have a pretty good chance. I mean, when you look at it, like right now, the only team that's undefeated is San Francisco. And let's see as they progress, because, again, I think you've seen the Saints get tested.
They're playing a last-place schedule, too.
I hear you.
Right.
But the fact that you've lost your franchise quarterback and you're right now, if the season ended, the second seed you'll take. So we talked ad nauseum this show. You're deep. You're getting deeper, and I think the team's progressing every week. So, I give them a lot of good chances. LSU's, while they've improved, and we talked about it, it just boils down to you got to get through Bama one way or shape. Now, I'll say this. The fact that Florida is ranked, Auburn was ranked, if you beat those and your only loss is Alabama and it's relatively close, I do think LSU can be considered as a Final Four team, even though despite they lost at Bama, if that game is remotely close. Because, again, Florida's ranked number 7. Auburn was ranked in the top 10 just last week before that game against Florida, and I think you can do that.
Yeah.
The caller's question.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is done for in that national championship race. You've got LSU and Bama. I think the winner and loser of that could be 1-4 or 2-4. Yeah. You've got Clemson, I think, is a pretty safe pick. So that leaves Ohio State and Georgia and Oklahoma. Texas may do them a favor if they beat Oklahoma this weekend in the Red River rivalry. If LSU-Bama, the winner-loser loses a close game, and then the winner beats the snot out of Georgia, then that probably works in LSU's favor too, or the loser of that game's favor too. So there's some things to see play out, but certainly having the strong schedule will help. As far as the Saints, like Gus said, they've played – we talk so much about this first quarter of the schedule, the first 4 games. They get through at 3-1. Right. Especially seeing Breeze go down, we would have taken 2-2, right? Sure. So now they're 4-1. All of a sudden they're facing a backup quarterback maybe the next couple weeks. Things look pretty good. It's the NFL. There's more parity, but I still like the Saints.
Right. And division's not that good. I mean, that helps. Even though, again, there's always a dogfight when you play teams within the division. The division is a poor division this year, and that wasn't really anticipated. You expect, Tampa
Atlanta's
to take
got
the next
way
step.
Too much talent to be this bad.
There's no doubt.
It's unreal.
Look, the one thing you hope about Atlanta is they never get a good coach.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, what we used to say about Mike Smith, right?
Save Smitty.
I mean, yeah, no doubt.
He's got to do it for Dan.
Yeah, no doubt. Because I'm telling you right now, because you're right, they have too much talent. Guys, we've got a minute and a half left. What about Zion Williamson? If you would, you guys split the time.
It's incredible to me, and you can take Zion on this aspect, because I just got to say this. You've seen him progress every game. You've seen him progress by the quarter. That third quarter in Chicago was great. I love the fact that they didn't quit down 23 in the fourth quarter, Chris. And the reason I say that is because you're building a DNA and you're building something for later on in the season. That's what stands out to me. You're building a culture, your identity. Who are you? It's these young, I call them the baby birds, that want to win no matter what. You see unselfishness, and you see almost a team that's not built on star, even though the kid's a star already.
Right, 30 seconds.
Yeah, you see want to win, but you also see that guys are competing for minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, between Frank Jackson, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and some of the guys who are going to be, I guess, at the bottom of the rotation or bottom of the lineup, this is a deep team. These are still really good players, so they're all proving that they've got game. It's just a matter of how you're going to divide these minutes up once you get to the regular season, but with Zion, he's obviously had a tremendous start, and I love the depth of this team, especially at guard when you didn't always know that was going to be the case.
Yeah. Probably the deepest team we've seen here in New Orleans.
I haven't seen Jackson Hayes yet.
Yeah, no, incredible. Gus Kattengell, Chris Hagan, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. You can catch us statewide, Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 o'clock every Friday night. You catch all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com. You catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2 on the iHeart Radio app. That's noon to 2 weekdays. Listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. You already know you catch the TV show there as well. Also want to have a special thanks to our underwriters who make this show possible. Also to the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Richard King, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Again, thanks to our guest tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Wow, that went quick tonight. You got the dome right behind you.